You have walked with me again and again up the stony path to Carrick's K1 and paused among the fairy rings to pick mushrooms for breakfast and for poetry. You have pointed out like a snail shell or a curlew feather or mermaid's purse, the right word, silences and syllables audible at the water's windy edge. We have tracked otter prints to Alarin and waited for hours on our chilly throne for 50 years, man and wife, voices low, counting oystercatchers and sanderlings. Taking a comfortable seat, placing your hands up on your lap, feeling that total receptivity creeping in as you fall back into your body, as you sink back into your body, like silt falling to the bottom of a glass. And then just straightening your back a little. Straightening the neck by a millimeter. And letting the shoulders fall. And then letting them fall again. And feeling your awareness in your forehead, right in the center, here between your eyebrows. With your eyes closed or half closed. And the muscles in your face just softening around the eyes, the cheekbones, the jaw. Softening the neck. And then creaking open that huge cathedral door of the heart and letting everything out and anything in, whatever comes. To sit in that pose of equanimity and openness, a willingness to let the thoughts fly by, whatever they are, to let the emotions move through you and to let them go. Total willingness just for the next half an hour to soften your defenses, to let go of judgments of yourself or your practice. Just coming home to the body, softening the belly, feeling yourself rooted on the floor, your feet flat on the floor, or your sit bones if you're sitting. And then deepening the breath. 4 counts in, and a pause at the top, and 5 counts out. 4 counts in, and 5 counts out. Just do that 2 more times. You might find yourself in it. The way I refer to it as a cathedral where the walls seem to lengthen into this great ceiling of awareness and widen so that there's more space to allow for whatever it is you're feeling. It's not this cramped, irritated space, but whatever that irritation is, or that pain, or that anger, or that uncomfortableness, now is surrounded by great space. And that's really the only difference. There's just much more of what you are. "50 Years" by Michael Longley. You have walked with me again and again up the stony path to Carrick's K1 and paused among the fairy rings to pick mushrooms for breakfast and for poetry. You've pointed out, like a snail's shell or a curlew feather or mermaid's purse, the right word, silences and syllables, audible at the water's windy edge. We have tracked otter prints to Ilaran and waited for hours on our chilly throne for 50 years. Man and wife, voices low, counting oystercatchers and sanderlings. Michael Longley's poem describes a place of pilgrimage. That's why I chose it today. It's not a religious place of pilgrimage, but a natural one. It's a throne, it's an altar of the natural world. And I began to think about pilgrimage. What are these places? What defines a pilgrimage? To me, a place of pilgrimage is a well-lit room. It's a room where we can see our scars in full light, not to grieve the marks on ourselves or on our bodies or our energetic bodies, but to marvel that they healed it all, to see them in full light. That's been my experience in Assisi this week. Just today, I was in one of the most precious, precious places I've ever known. It's the Basilica of St. Francis. And I sat with many of the works of art and the relics that have become a part of my poetry and have appeared in many of my books for the last 20 years since I first came here in 2006. There's a fresco in the lower church of the Last Supper by Lorenzetti that I was just looking at today. And I've been teaching that piece and writing about it for decades. There's another piece by Giotto, a fresco in the upper church, which shows Francis standing between his father and a bishop, and up above them, like a triangle at the peak, is the tiny hand of God, just just peeking out of the clouds. There's this triangular current between those three forces that has always attracted me. There's a fresco of Judas just at the exit, which I wrote about in a book called The Most Natural Thing. And then, most of all, is the crypt where I actually first started thinking about today's talk. There's a basket of candles down there that are placed there by people who are passing by the crypt where Francis's ashes are. And the basket is huge. It's filled with candles that are yet unlit. You just take a candle and place it in the basket. And there's this potentiality of pain that's about to be burned away, or of suffering that's about to be transmuted into something else, into fire. And it's so beautiful to me. There's a reliquary with his robe from the 13th century and a stone pillow that they laid his head on. It's an incredible place. It's my place of pilgrimage, even though I don't consider myself a Catholic anymore. But this is my well-lit room. And I come back and I see those scars in full light, and I just marvel at the fact that I'm still here. Michael Longley's poem is a reliquary of places and also the words for things in those places. And he's been returning to this place with his wife for 50 years, places around Carrigskeewaun in County Mayo where he lived. And he finds in these places of pilgrimage the things that he and his wife, he says, counted there. And using all the language of the pilgrim, he comes back again and again. Their voices are low. They're sitting on their chilly throne, watching the things of nature. He was, however, an atheist. He called himself a sentimental disbeliever. But his poem, nevertheless, seems to ask a question. Why do these things come alive for us when we're in a state of devotion? Why do we save trinkets? Why do we try to remember the names for things? It's so important to us. Why do we remember the names of places that we shared with a beloved? He doesn't really explain it in the poem, but he assumes that somehow we know that we've experienced this too. And it's the experience of love having grabbed us in this place and said to us somehow, take care of this. Remember how it feels to be open, like you're open right now. Take responsibility for this place and the things in it, for nature, or for the ideas that are held behind this church or this tradition. Whatever it is, it's saying, take this, take care of it. It reminded me of a story that I'll close with that comes from Jan Wagner again. Jan Wagner and I were at his cottage outside of Berlin 2 summers ago, and we had gone to a lake. And sitting at the lake, it really looked like it was going to begin to pour. And just as it was getting dark, a little child came up to Jan and said, I'm gonna go in for a little swim at the lake. And could you hold my tiny bracelet? It was just a trinket, but she handed it over to him like it was her most precious possession. And he said, yes, of course, I'll hold your bracelet. And she went out there to swim with others who were out there. She just kept going. And Jan and I were left on the dock with this tiny bracelet as the clouds started forming, and we realized that we were going to have to walk all the way back to his cottage and probably get rained on if we waited any longer. But we could not leave. And so we waited for the girl to come back. We gave her her bracelet back, and we ran to miss the rain. And places of pilgrimage are a lot like that. The thing itself maybe means less than what's behind it, which is love reaching out to us and saying, stay open. Remember what it's like to have been here and take it with you everywhere. Here's the poem one more time. 50 years. You have walked with me again and again up the stony path to Carrigskeewan and paused among the fairy rings to pick mushrooms for breakfast and for poetry. You've pointed out like a snail's shell or a curlew feather or mermaid's purse, the right word, silences and syllables, audible at the water's windy edge. We have tracked otter prints to Alarin and waited for hours on our chilly throne for 50 years, man and wife, voices low, counting oystercatchers and sanderlings. Let's go back into that widening room. Feeling the shoulders relaxing, the neck, the muscles of the face, softening the belly. In the hands, if your hands are resting on your lap, just feeling all the muscles letting go. And we're back in it. Four counts in as we do, taking in the suffering of someone around us who's struggling right now. And then in the forge of the heart, transforming that into compassion, breathing out to 5 and releasing it. There's a cosmologist named Brian Cox who talks about how unlikely it is that we're here. He says it's such a big ask that a planet remain fairly stable for 4 or 5 billion years to develop intelligent life that can reflect back on existence. He uses that as a way of explaining why, in every direction, wherever we look, we don't get signs of life like ours. It could be the rarest, 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 rarest thing. Just thinking about that, I realized that what we're doing could be the most unique and important work in the cosmos. Where are your places of pilgrimage? Where have you sat on the dock and felt love come to you and say, take care of this? Whether it be the names of things in a language that's dying, or a landscape, or beings of that place, from the smallest, smallest ones. Or a family home, or a reliquary in a basilica in another country. Two more breaths. In Longley, I think it's not just the natural world, but the nature of his marriage that he's revisiting in this place. As Ram Dass says, it's the one playing at two, playing at one. It's the memory again and again of being peace. "50 Years" by Michael Longley. You have walked with me again and again up the stony path to Carrigskewan and paused among the fairy rings to pick mushrooms for breakfast and for poetry. You have pointed out, like a snail's shell or a curlew feather or mermaid's purse, the right word, silences and syllables audible at the water's windy edge. We have tracked otter prints to Alarin and waited for hours on our chilly throne. For 50 years, man and wife, voices low, counting oystercatchers and sanderlings.